Heads up, this episode includes adult language, erotic themes, and something you might not be into. Spoilers. If you're a regular listener to the show, you know that back in the mid-1980s, I was a teenager in the city of Pittsburgh, and the big commercial radio station played what you probably imagined they'd play in what was then a fading steel town. A lot of Springsteen, a lot of Zeppelin. There were also some country stations, oldies, soul. But then this one station changed its tune. WYDD-FM rebranded itself as the channel for Metro Music.
Metro. WYDD. Cruise with me. We're cruising the Metro. Metro Music.
Synthy, modern, a lot of new wave or dance hits. And in May '86, there was this one single their DJs always spun. A throbbing dance pop number that kicks off with what might have been the first rap I ever heard.
Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand that's pointing at your head. You think you're mad.
The first hit by the Pet Shop Boys, West End Girls.
In Western town, a dead end world. The Eastern boys and Western girls.
West End Girls topped the charts that year, so it was everywhere. On YDD, in the car while I was learning to drive, playing at boutiques at the mall, or on a date with my girlfriend at Spinning Wheels Roller Rink. And that's how I thought of that song, a Euro-cool background tune. Surely not as deep or political as the punk and indie rock I was starting to get into. Metro Music.
Faces on posters, too many choices. If, when, why, what, how much have you got?
But a few thousand miles and an ocean away in Croydon, about a 50-minute drive south of the city of London, lived another teen named Andrew Haigh, who had a way different relationship to this band.
I've always loved them. When their album, I think Please, came out in 85, 84, 85. And I just listened to that LP over and over and over and over again. And that first album, which West End Girls is on, it's got this like feeling. If you listen to it now, it's all about late night, London, 80s, desire, longing, needing to find somebody. And for the little sort of gay boy in me that was starting to come to terms with who he was, I was like, this feels like it's telling me a secret. This is telling me to come to London. This is telling me that I can live this life. Even if I didn't know all that kind of stuff consciously at the time.
38 years later, Haigh took the Pet Shop Boys and other glossy-sounding music I used to skate to and used it to score one of the most beautiful and heartbreaking movies of the decade. I'm Rico Gagliano. Welcome back to the MUBI podcast. MUBI's the global film company that champions great cinema. On this show, we tell you the stories behind great cinema. This is season 11. We're calling it Needle on the Record Side 2. By popular demand, this is the sequel to our season a while back all about needle drops. Those moments when filmmakers take a tune, drop it in their movie, and magic happens. We're focused this time out on UK music of the 80s and 90s. And I can't think of a movie that uses that stuff in a more moving way than Andrew Haigh's All of Us Strangers, a hit drama that won or got nominated for just about every film award in Britain when it came out in 2023. It's about a gay man literally confronting his past, and it's as wrenching to watch as it was for Haigh and his star Andrew Scott to shoot.
It was like me and Andrew were doing some weird therapy session with a film crew watching us.
One way it gets the tears flowing for me is its use of 80s pop and dance tunes, because in Haigh's hands, it's clear this music was a light in some dark times.
82, 83, 84, AIDS was starting to happen. I think it's written as a sort of an answer to that, as like love can get us through this.
You're going to hear Haigh tell me all about the genesis and making of the movie, and then in the second act, we just geek out on all the music in it, because since my teens, I have wised up, and now some of my favorite songs can actually be found on this soundtrack. So get ready for tears and laughs as we drop the needle on All of Us Strangers. So a lot of people first saw Andrew Haigh's work on the HBO series Looking. That was a comedy drama he executive produced and co-wrote. It's about a group of gay guys stumbling through jobs and relationships in modern-day San Francisco. But 6 years later, circa 2020, he was wrapping up work on a very different kind of series, on location in the Arctic Circle.
I'd been doing a show called The North Water, which was for the BBC, which we shot up in Svalbard, which was a crazy experience, shooting up on the ice. It's a sort of 19th century whaling story. And so I was editing that, and then the pandemic hit. And so, of course, no one was doing anything. We were all just stuck in our houses. So I spent, I don't know, a year and a half essentially in my apartment in LA. And that's when I started working more on the script.
The script to a feature he'd been struggling with, an adaptation of a Japanese novel by Taichi Yamada called Strangers, with a plot that sounds exactly like what a screenwriter trapped in an apartment would work on.
A Japanese television writer splits up from his wife and child and is living alone in Tokyo. Lonely, meets someone in the same apartment building. They start a relationship, and then during the course of that relationship, he's drawn back to his childhood home. And in the story, his parents have died, and he goes back and he finds them again, as they were before they died.
That's when the novel turns into almost a ghost story. Like the woman he meets in his building turns out to be an evil spirit. Now, the supernatural's not really Haig's kind of thing, but
I think that the most important thing for me was this idea, which is that there are things in our past that we want to return to, but are unable to return to because obviously the past has gone. I found that a really interesting conceit, being able to go back to that sort of period of time with your parents and be joyous at being reconnected with them, but then realizing that they don't know you at all.
So Haigh took Yamada's story and that theme and made it his own, changing the setting, the characters' sexual orientations, and the things that haunt them.
Meanwhile, work goes on for the Brits who've relocated to the Costa.
All of Us Strangers opens on Adam, played by Andrew Scott, a lonely, middle-aged, yes, screenwriter, procrastinating, loafing around his flat in an eerily empty apartment building in East London. Until one night, after a fire drill, he gets a visit from the only other tenant in the place, a younger guy, played by Paul Mescal.
Hello.
Hello.
Saw you looking at me from the street. I'm Harry.
Harry's drunk and, let's say, solicitous.
Okay, how about I come in anyway? If not for a drink, then for whatever else you might want.
And Adam's tempted, but declines. Still, the next day, something about that encounter inspires Adam to take a train to his hometown, where his parents, played by Jamie Bell and Claire Foy, welcome him into his childhood house.
Guess what I found loitering in the park?
Is it him? Yes, it is you.
Which is amazing because they both died in the 80s when he was a kid.
Hi.
You live by yourself?
Do you want your own place?
Yeah, it's just a flat.
What did I tell you?
What did I tell you? I told you we're doing well for himself, didn't I?
Are they ghosts? Are they in his head? Either way, Adam keeps paying visits to tell them everything he never got to tell them about his life. Like that he's come out as gay, and that he survived both being bullied and the AIDS era.
Oh God, and what about this awful ghastly disease? I've seen the adverts on the news and with the gravestone. Should I be worried about that?
No. Jesus. Everything's different now. Everything's different.
Except talking to them, he starts to realize maybe not everything is different. He still carries scars from it all, which he decides to share with Harry, who can relate. He's got scars too.
I'm really sorry.
No, thanks. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't think that matters.
Adam finally lets go of his parents and the past. He and Harry fall in love, and even when their relationship takes a heartbreaking turn towards the end, Haigh leaves us with this gorgeous last shot of the two of them lying in bed, dissolving into pure light. While on the soundtrack, a tune plays by the 80s pop kings Frankie Goes to Hollywood, called The Power of Love. I tell you, just writing that synopsis put a lump in my throat. And when Haigh and I got to talking about the process of making this movie, it was clear he felt the same way for like the entire shoot.
And it's not the same story as mine. My parents did not die in a car accident when I was 9 years old. But my parents got divorced when I was 9 years old, and I lived with my dad and didn't live with my mum. So there was still a fracture within the family environment. And also, I made things slightly more complicated for myself by filming it in the house I actually grew up in real life, which I hadn't been to for 40 years.
Yeah, tell me about that. How was it complicated?
Well, I think it was a very strange environment to be shooting in. You know, there's a scene, for example, in the parents' bed when he's lying in bed with his mum, and that is the bedroom that I lay in bed with my mum and dad when I was 7 years old. I haven't got particularly happy memories of being in that place. I was having a very hard time at school. I was being bullied at school, like the character is being bullied in school in the story. And of course, it's the first time that I was starting, even at 9 or 10, to come to terms with my own sexuality and work out who I was. And that was the reason I was being picked on at school and all those kind of things. So even though the story is very different, it still was allowing me to go back to a past version of myself, as Andrew Scott's character was going back to a past version of himself.
Now, Andrew Scott, he's only a little younger than you, born in 76. So he would have gone through the same era, the 80s era.
Yeah.
Bleak time for gay men. And there's so many scenes where he's moved to tears. Tell me about shooting those scenes with him.
mean, I feel like both me and Andrew felt them very deeply. I mean, you could tell that they were working on set, that people were feeling them on set, but me and Andrew, the only gay people on set.
Really?
Yeah, my script supervisor he was, but there were very few people who were, which is just always the nature of being on film sets. Usually pretty much they are straight. So, you know, I knew that they were going to be emotional. They were emotional. I remember just like every time Andrew would do it, we would talk about it and he would be like, I'm probably not going to cry. Like, let's just get this scene done. I don't think necessarily the character would cry in this moment of the scene. And I was like, okay, let's just see how it goes. And then each and every time the emotion would bubble up in Andrew and he would, you know, get upset. And I think he just couldn't help it because the scene was bringing up so much, you know, stuff that of course he's experienced. And I was feeling the same thing in those moments. So they were very kind of special. It was like me and Andrew were doing some weird therapy session with a film crew watching us.
And it makes sense. The movie is kind of about processing trauma.
Yeah.
I mean, like something that I was feeling intensely while I was watching this. I'm around the same age as you, by the way. I remembered the AIDS crisis, which as a straight guy, I only periodically think about anymore, usually when I'm watching a movie about or set in the AIDS crisis. And it's crazy. There was a point in time where a whole population of the country was just regularly dying for living their lives. And now we don't think about it anymore. And it's like the impact that leaves is never going to go away.
Yeah.
To what extent was that foremost in your mind? I guess?
No, I think it was really, really important. It was definitely, you know, in my mind. I think, you know, I'm of that generation that I think it's called the middle generation. So it's not the generation of gay men that actually were destroyed by AIDS. It's that slightly strange generation afterwards that grew into their understanding of their sexuality, but associating it so closely with death. You grew into it thinking, wait, if I'm going to be gay, does that mean I'm going to die? And I think it's very hard for people to actually realize what that felt like. You thought, well, I've got no future. There is no future in my life. If I want to be what I want to be, I'm probably going to die. And at that point, people were not surviving, even into the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I think it's left a really heavy scar on a whole generation of gay men that is often forgotten. And then the new generation of gay people that come up who don't worry about it as much, they're sort of like, why are you so scarred by that? And you want to sort of just go, well, you know what, just try living in that. And I think that's very much part of what the character goes through, is sort of that kind of bubbling up in him again, almost that fear coming back to the surface again, and him trying to sort of get past that, which I think he does sort of get past it.
And in the movie, you can tell something that holds off Adam's fear and always has is music. Like whenever we see him at his typewriter trying to write about his family, there's always an 80s record spinning in the background. Or there's a scene where he walks through a drenching rain to his parents' house.
Sweetheart, you came back.
Of course I came back.
And then while his mom dries his clothes, he literally takes refuge from the storm in his old room, which is papered with band posters of Frankie Goes to Hollywood and the Pet Shop Boys. Smiling, he thumbs through an old issue of Smash Hits music magazine and softly touches his copy of Frankie's LP, Welcome to the Pleasure Dome, like it's something precious. So let's finally talk about the music. Is the main character's love of music so much present in the book?
No, I don't think there's anything about music in the book, not particularly.
So how did music become such a huge part of this movie? I mean, it's present right from the beginning.
I think for me, especially when I was a teenager, music was everything to me. Like, I just was obsessed by listening to music, you know, from like 1980 onwards, when I realized I could save up my pocket money and buy a record. And I think especially there's a certain breed of kind of British music in the 80s that was really queer when the rest of the world wasn't queer. And it was sort of being quite radical just within the remit of pop music. It was political and it was queer. It was all of these things that I think has forged who I am today as a person, was from some of those records I listened to when I was young. And I also just think, like, now as an adult, when I go back to those songs, it drags me back to the feeling that I felt at that time. I don't think anything can do it. Music is the best way to bring you back to a memory, to bring you back to the past. And I can remember listening to the first Pet Shop Boys album, or like a Madonna album, or Erasure, or the Smiths, or whoever these bands were that I loved, especially when I was, 9, 10, 11, 12, that really weird formative period. And then obviously onwards into my later teens. It was so important to me, and I knew that that was so important in the film. And in a weird way, as he starts listening to music, like when he's working on his script at home.
In the very early scenes.
Yeah, early scenes. He's listening to, a Fine Young Cannibals song, and it starts to bring him back emotionally to a state of mind that he remembers when he was younger, which sort of opens up an element of him that allows him to start this journey to go back home.
It's also literally called Johnny Come Home.
Yeah. It's like, get back here. You belong here.
Johnny, we're sorry. Won't you come on home?
So I really used music as a way to time travel, I suppose.
Okay, we're getting to the part with the smiles. Andrew Haigh takes me on a tour through his movie's 80s playlist, from this track to the time Frankie Goes to Hollywood brought perversion to the people.
You open their album and there was a sleeve inside which was selling like leather underwear with like zips on.
That's coming up in just a minute. Stay with us. All right, everybody. MUBI is the global film company that champions great cinema, bringing it to you wherever you are in as many ways as we possibly can. We stream movies, we produce them, we distribute them in cinemas, movies from any country, from legendary auteurs to brilliant first-timers. We've always got something new to discover. And hey, if All of Us Strangers is your bag, here's another beautiful heartbreaker of a movie you're going to want to see on MUBI. If you haven't already, it's called After Sun. This is the incredibly assured sleeper hit debut feature from Scotland's Charlotte Wells. It also stars Paul Mescal in an Oscar-nominated role. He plays a father who takes his tween daughter on a holiday in Turkey, and the two of them find themselves grappling with his depression, which neither of them really fully understand. This was one of the surprise indie hits of 2022. I remember none other than Barack Obama put it on his annual list of the best movies of the year. Also, since we're talking about music today, you should go back and listen to my MUBI podcast interview with Wells about it, where we did kind of what you're about to hear me do with Andrew Haigh. We went through a bunch of the tracks and her thoughts about them, especially her now iconic deployment of the classic Under Pressure. Anytime I hear that song now, I think of that movie. Anyway, if you're in the UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, and many other countries, you can stream After Sun. And if you're in the US and Canada, may I suggest another movie, The History of Sound. This is yet another Paul Mescal movie. That guy is in too many amazing films. I hope he takes a vacation soon. He stars in it along with Josh O'Connor, and they play two music obsessives who travel and fall in love while making field recordings in Maine post-World War I. It's a great movie. It's gorgeous to look at. Subscribe to MUBI and MUBI.com and enjoy. We have got details and links to all this stuff in the show notes of this episode. Speaking of which, let's get back to the episode. So if you listen close to the soundtrack of All of Us Strangers, thematically, the songs don't have much to do with each other. A minute ago, you heard a snippet of Fine Young Cannibals' Johnny Come Home. That's a melodramatic shout-out to some kind of runaway. There's a cover of a Willie Nelson love song and a tune about the evils of urban sprawl. But they do have a few things in common. Like, for instance,
I just loved those songs when I was young. So I just went back And I was like, what songs did I love when I was a teenager? Oh my God, I love that song. I remember listening to this. I love that song. And there's something about all of them that's sort of, I don't know, I would call it melancholic pop. You know, I think the Brits did melancholic pop better than anybody else. And the Fine Young Cannibals was one version of that. I just loved Roland Gift's voice. There was something sort of masculine and feminine about it that I just adored. Yeah. And sort of felt like it was a good first song for him to be listening to.
Yeah, in the movie, it's the first song Adam plays. And not only is the chorus literally kind of telling him to come on home, there's also this lyric, what is wrong in my life that I must get drunk every night, which kind of foreshadows the Harry character's problems. Yeah. I mean, as you were deciding on songs, were you ever like, oh my God, it's like this has been sitting here for 40 years waiting to be put in my movie?
Yeah, and the wonderful thing about music is you can be on the nose. Like, you can be really obvious. Song lyrics are designed to be obvious sometimes. They're like, we're just going to say this like quite blatant thing, like, you know, we're worried when you come on home. And I can put it in a film and it sort of works because I know that if I'm in a certain mood and I want to be given some type of message, I might choose a record to put it on to give me that message. And I sort of love that he chose to put that record on. That was his choice to put it on.
Right. Of course it would be Johnny Come Home.
Yeah, it's not some random choice. He's struggling to write about some story he wants to write about. I'm going to put on the Fine Young Cannibals' Johnny Come Home.
I kind of love that in this very ambivalent movie where a lot of times I'm not even sure what's real. You just let a song straight up tell us what's going on.
Exactly.
But now let's talk about a moment where it's kind of the opposite, where you use a song with lyrics that really have nothing to do with what the characters are feeling. A song called Build by the House Martins, who honestly, by the way, are one of my favorite bands. And when I was going back through the movie before this interview, I was so excited because I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be able to play the House Martins on this episode. So this is playing in Adam's apartment in a scene where he's looking out his window at Harry outside, and he decides to invite him in after rejecting him at first. But the song is actually not, it's like a lot of House Martins tunes. It sounds like maybe it's a hopeful love song, but it's actually this ironic poison pill of a lyric.
Absolutely, totally brutal.
And it's not even about relationships, really. It's about this policy in 80s England to just pave over poor neighborhoods and erect new housing.
Slow, slow, quick, quick, quick. It's wall to wall and brick to brick. They work so fast, it makes you sick. It's bad.
Very sarcastic political song, but you're ignoring that and taking it as the literal, oh, we're going to build something now, a relationship or something. Why do that?
Look, again, I adore the House Martins. I'm pretty convinced that my politics has come from listening to the House Martins. I think I hate the royal family from listening to Flag Day endlessly by the House Martins, and I think they were geniuses, and I think Bill's an amazing song. There's something amazing at the end that Paul does with his voice that I just think is unbelievable, and it feels like all of the emotion in you is bubbling up. So for me, what's happening in that moment, when I was writing the script, I would listen to that song, and it always makes me cry, that song, if I listen to it in my headphones. But it's that weird version of tears that is not sadness. I don't know what it is. It's some magic that a voice and a sentiment can do. And I sort of like there's lots of things going on. He's sort of writing this story about home, which is making him melancholy. And Build is quite a melancholy song.
It is about the past getting paved over in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're destroying the past to make way for buildings that are disgusting and awful. And he's living in one of those buildings that the House Martins were complaining about that people are building. And then at the same time, this person appears. And that there's something about all of those things happening at the same time. It just creates sort of different levels of meaning because he's reaching out, but he's also wanting to go back, and there's a lot going on. And we put it down on the track, And I think it was one of the points we tried Erasure's The Circus as well, which is another great song again, which just has politics at its core, even though it feels like it's about something else. But Build felt like the perfect song.
For, say, American audiences who might know the House Martins from Happy Hour, that was like their big hit. How big a deal were they at that time in England?
They were a really big deal. And I've actually used them before in things, which always makes me chuckle. I did this TV show called Looking on HBO, and there was like a final wrap-up movie. This is set in San Francisco in the modern day when we made it. And I ended with I'll Be Your Shelter, I think it's called, by the House Martins. And everyone was like, why are you using this weird British song from the 80s? I'm like, I'm using this song. I love this song. It's going on. But, they were big. And then they went on to be The Beautiful South. And then obviously Norman Cook, who was in the House Martins, went on to be Fatboy Slim. Yep. So they've still been part of like British musical heritage ever since they started.
All right, let's go to the two big ones to me. First, Pet Shop Boys, who appear often in this movie.
Yeah.
You're Always on My Mind. It practically becomes Adam's mother's monologue to him. Take us through that scene for somebody who either hasn't seen the movie or hasn't seen it in a while.
He wakes up and he finds himself back in his bedroom, in his childhood bed, and he's wearing his childhood pajamas, which don't fit anymore and they're too small. And he hears music playing downstairs, which is Top of the Pops, which is a big music show in the UK, especially in the 80s. He comes down the stairs, we realise it's Christmas, he comes into the room. The Pet Shop Boys are actually on the television, and his parents are decorating the Christmas tree, and he helps them decorate the Christmas tree. And then as the song is playing, the mother starts to sort of sing along with the song.
If I made you feel second best, I'm so sorry I was blind. You were always on my mind.
And then the father joins in. All the while, Adam's wearing his childhood pajamas.
Tell me that your sweet love hasn't died.
When did the idea come to choose that song for that moment?
It was in the script. Like lots of these are actually scripted. This was definitely in the script, this one. And that song's so interesting to me because it's a love song, essentially. It's a man singing about a woman. And I love just turning that completely on its head. And when I read the lyrics, I'm like, oh my God, it's absolutely perfect for the mother to sing to her son. The lyrics are literally that if she could write a song to say how she felt about her son, this would be the lyrics that she would sing. And it makes perfect sense because it was Christmas #1 in 1986 or whenever it was, when he's gone back to this Christmas at home. And also it speaks to something else that I was interested about. To me, like, I think that we learn our understandings of what we need in romantic love through what we understood about parental love. And so I love this idea that a love song that could be from a man to a woman or a woman to a man or a man to a man can also become from a parent to a child. It worked perfectly for that.
Again, very emotional scene. Tell me about shooting it.
I mean, the scene is so ridiculous in concept. When I was writing, I'm like, oh my God, this could be an absolute disaster. How on earth is this going to work? He looks stupid in his pajamas. They're singing along to a pop song. It could easily just be like everyone literally laughing at the screen. But for some reason, I felt like it would work. I felt like there's something sort of so magical about that idea. And I found it deeply emotional when I watch it.
Yeah.
And then as a sort of strange aside to this, which actually goes back to my dad, which is really fascinating. After my dad died, we were trying to work out what songs to play at his funeral. And I asked my stepmom what his favorite song was, because I didn't really know what it was. And she said it was Elvis Presley's Always on My Mind.
What?
And I was like, oh my God. So we played it at his funeral, was the Elvis Presley version. And then not only that, this is even weird. I don't even know. This is almost impossible, but it's real. I found out that my dad had died while I was on the jury at the Venice Film Festival. So that was complicated, as you can imagine itself. I was in the final deliberations of the Venice jury, and I got a text to find out that my dad had died. So I left that day, and I was in the airport in duty free in Venice, and the Pet Shop Boys' Always on My Mind came on the radio, came on the music system.
Wow.
And I was like, what what the motherfucker's happening here? How is this happening? Like, why is the Pet Shop Boys playing in Italy in the duty free, and why is it always on my mind? Why is it that song? And then I go back and found out it was also my dad's favorite song. So there's something weird about that song that has sort of had a life of its own. So yes, the song was played at my dad's funeral, but the Elvis Presley version of it.
I mean, they really have played a huge part in your life. You also directed one of their recent videos.
Yeah. And then I've just always, as they've sort of gone in and out of fashion and back in again, I've always loved them. And I went to a concert recently, which was in London, which was all their B-sides and their obscure songs. And I'm in this room, and there were just so many middle-aged gay people in this room, sort of crying and knowing all the words and singing along. And I was like, yeah, this is why the Pet Shop Boys means so much to so many people.
Yeah, a lot of these songs, to be honest. When I think of Frankie Goes to Hollywood, which we'll talk about now, I think of their single Relax. And I think of it as like big, sexy, cheeky, campy. And realizing that all of this music has deep emotional resonance and was probably geared to have deep emotional resonance was like very surprising to me. Do you find that like straights are kind of like don't get it?
Totally. Like if you can see it online somewhere, there's the original music video they did for Relax. And it's basically Holly Johnson and Paul Rutherford in a weird sex club with like, there's a huge big man in leather, which looks like he's essentially urinating over an audience. It's the most obscene video in the world. And the song Relax is basically about not ejaculating when you're having sex.
It's about edging.
It's about edging. And so the fact that was number one for like 6 weeks in whatever it was, 1983, is so insane to me. It's essentially two gay people have written a song about gay edging, and it has become a worldwide hit. And they're unapologetic about it. They're wearing leather on stage. Yeah. You open their album and there was a sleeve inside which was selling like leather underwear with like zips on. And you're like, what is happening? And I remember looking at that as a kid being like, this might be the sexiest thing I have ever seen in my life. That album is a great album. If you ever listen to the whole album again, it's a double album. Welcome to Pleasure Dome. It's Treble Horn produced it. Genius Treble Horn, who produced so much great music. Yep. And what I loved about The Power of Love, it's still big and it's booming and it's operatic and it's slightly ridiculous, but also very emotional at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it closes the whole movie.
Well, you put a record on. What would you like? Yeah, you choose.
The last line is Andrew reciting a lyric from it to Harry.
I'll protect you from the hooded claw. Keep the vampires from your door.
And I sort of felt like it was the perfect, again, it's saying exactly what I wanted to say, the power of love and the importance of it. But I think for Holly, writing that song, it was about the power of love in the face of AIDS. That's why they wrote it. AIDS was starting to happen. I think it's written as a sort of an answer to that. As like, love can get us through this.
Dreams are like angels. They keep at bay. Love is the light, scaring darkness away.
And so I love the idea that at the end there was this kind of weird song that maybe people play at weddings because they think it's cute or whatever it is, but it's got these deeper connotations towards queer love and queer transcendence through love.
The power of love, a force from above, cleaning my soul.
And you look, again, everyone was like, I'm not sure you can end with this, like, really? You're going to end with Frankie Goes to Hollywood and they're going to go up and you're going to go up into the stars? Have you gone crazy? And most of the time I thought, oh my God, have I gone crazy? This is like this is some choice. But I felt like I've been quite restrained in a lot of my work. And this is still, in many respects, still quite restrained, but I wanted to end the film on basically a bombastic, emotional note. I didn't want to be afraid of sentimentality, of emotion, or whatever it was. I'm like, just go for it. Let those big banging drums that come in, let them come in, let them louder, pump them up. Like, let's really embrace the bigness of that song.
I'll be around with my undying
the video for that song. I don't know if you remember it.
It's religious. It's
they make it about Jesus.
The birth of Jesus. Love it. And look, I don't believe, I'm not a religious person, but, Jesus, love through suffering, I guess.
Yeah.
There is something, and there's so many of those images of people dying of AIDS, and there's a sort of sense of looking like Jesus on the cross in some of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I think there's a choice to make that video, and they wanted a Christmas #1, which I kind of love the subversive fuck you of that. It's like, no, we want to be #1 at Christmas, so we're going to make a Christmas song.
Was it?
It was #1 in the UK at Christmas, yeah.
Talking about that video, the majority of comments on the official video, I came to this from All of Us Strangers.
I love that. I love that they brought that might bring more people to that song. I think that's fantastic to me. There's been a very strange thing with this movie. These are songs that I loved when I was 12 years old, living in, a little suburban house, never thinking that I would certainly not be a filmmaker, certainly not thinking I could ever be a gay person, but just loving this music. And then now I'm in my early 50s, and I'm like, oh wow, I've both become a director, and these songs I've loved, I'm now can put in my movie, be like, these things are important, and I sort of love that.
And that's the MUBI podcast this week. I'm proud to say Andrew Haigh is working on his next film called A Long Winter for MUBI. Look for that coming soon. Meanwhile, follow us to hear more of our season about great movies with great music. Next week, we take a mid-season break, but the following week, join us on a trip back to 1998, when director Hype Williams took an 80s UK club hit, bathed it in black light, and came up with an iconic moment in hip-hop history.
In terms of the most perfect musical sound bed for a scene, that is top 5, dead or alive.
The story of the movie Belly and the classic track Back to Life by Soul to Soul, featuring the tune's co-writer Simon Law and many more. Follow us so you don't miss it. If you love the show, please do hit pause and leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening, won't you? I would appreciate that. Also, you can find me on Threads or Instagram at Rico Gagliano. That is Rico, Gagliano. I will nerd out on 80s music with you all day on those platforms. And now, let's roll credits. This episode was written, hosted, and edited by me, Rico Gagliano. Kira McEniff is our producer, along with assistant producer Kat Kowalczyk. Jackson Musker is our tireless booking producer. Mastering by Stephen Colon. Martin Ostwick composed our original music. Thanks this week to David Harper for taping Andrew, and to Peter, Therese, and Karina Lesser. This show is executive produced by me, along with F.A. Checkarel, Daniel Kasman, and Michael Taka. And as always, to watch the best in cinema, subscribe to MUBI at MUBI.com. Thanks for listening. Go watch the movies, and R.I.P. Spinning Wheels.